Welcome, traveler. You are about to enter the realm of absolute knowledge. Prepare yourself. This is the supremely thorough, unquestionably precise information dominion. In this episode, we will be continuing our investigation into the Netherlands, a country that in a shocking turn of events, its residents have apparently abandoned, thanks to climate change and rising sea levels, which are predicted to imminently cause most of the country to be swallowed up by the sea. The residents of this once powerful trading empire are said to have been led by their king, Willem Alexander, the first of the Netherlands, who instructed his subjects to take only what they could carry on their backs and head for higher ground. Today, before the floodwaters reach his former residence, the Koninklijk Paleis Amsterdam, we are taking the opportunity to document the great treasures left behind before they are lost to the world forever. Fortunately, as we entered the palace, we found that power was still operating sufficiently to provide the lights. It's uncertain how much longer the generators will continue to operate or why they were left on at all, but without them, we would not have been able to bring you these well-lit works of art painted by the king himself to pass the time on rainy days. In addition to painting, the king was an expert sculptor. His works range from his attempts at self-portraits, as you see here alongside his two pet lions, Keith and Derek, to more serious works where he symbolized the absolute sovereignty of time over the health and lives of man. And beneath that, the rule of kings as ordained by God over the comings and going of man. The king was a humble man, not willing to have others suffer to see his work, and only displaying it in his own home for his children to admire in abject terror and obedience. Reportedly, the king even convinced his wife to learn some basic sculpting techniques, although it is unclear if any of the works in the palace were made with her hand. Hidden deep within the palace's private chambers lies this painting, a window into the king's most esoteric theological musings. It depicts his singular interpretation of biblical prophecy that Elijah's return would not be Elijah at all, but rather Moses himself, reborn as the herald of Christ's second coming. Crucially, this Moses would arrive not alone, but attended by cherubs bearing an entirely new set of 10 commandments, a divine legal framework designed to render the Old Testament's laws obsolete and usher in a fresh covenant for modern times. But not all of the king's paintings are controversial or even interesting. Some, like these paintings of the king's paternal ancestry, have interest only to the king himself. Sorry, Your Majesty. Now, despite all the beauty we had been looking at, we couldn't help but be reminded of the suddenness with which the king evacuated his home. Entire rooms retained that just lived and looked as if at any moment the king and his family could arrive from another room, instead of the sad truth that soon the water levels will rise and the sea will inundate the splendor of even this palace, reclaiming what the Dutch fought for hundreds of years to wrest from nature. Of all the ironies of a castle supplied with electricity from the last fumes of a diesel electric generator was the fact that this grandfather clock, a mechanical marvel from a time before electricity was invented, sat motionless, its springs having already expired, no doubt, because nobody thought to wind it before their departure. But as we wandered through the spacious rooms, which less than 24 hours prior His Resplendent Majesty, the King of the Netherlands, called his private residence, we came to what is perhaps the most disturbing prophetic genius of this mad king. There, adorning the vaulted ceiling directly above the royal bedchamber, hung a vision of celestial upheaval, cherubs and divine forces in chaotic descent, their forms writhing against clouds of amber and shadow, a prophecy perhaps of the very exodus now unfolding across the Netherlands as the king's subjects abandoned their earthly possessions, carrying only what their weary shoulders could bear. As if to mirror the prophetic calamity, the king's final sculpture, a lifelike death mask intended to be a last self-portrait, remains unfinished at the entrance to the king's closet. Still full of regal clothes the king will never wear again. Our time growing short as the generators outside start to sputter, we peered briefly into the royal dining room. No doubt the children of the royal family will be happy that their future meals will be had at a table with a more reasonable number of chairs. The floodwater audibly approaching, we found our footsteps being the last to ever walk on the red carpet of the royal palace. What came next may be hard to believe. I would not have believed it myself had I not seen it with my very eyes. The welcoming sentries, carved not by the king, but a mystic shaman he met on a spiritual trek to Tibet, now hid their eyes in shame. In trying to escape them, we found ourselves nearly trapped in a paradoxical courtyard with no exit. Only by scaling the walls with our bare hands did we manage to reach the roof alive. And so concludes another instructive episode of the supremely thorough, unquestionably precise information, Dominion. We implore you to leave a comment below telling us whether or not we should continue documenting the final moments of this God-forsaken country, or if there are other dominions that interest you more. And please, for the love of all that is holy, like and subscribe so that we can continue to provide the world with the unquestionably precise information it so desperately needs.